7.4 Control Costs. This particular video I think you'll come back to a number of times because it includes earned value technique. It's got a lot of calculations in it and they seem scary at the start, but once you get the hang of it you'll find they're actually very valuable tools for your project, and you can expect a number of questions on them in the examination. I studied for my PMP exam about 20 years ago, and I bought a large book on earned value management and studied it. I was able to do all of the calculations backward, upside down, any way at all. I was a real gun at earned value technique. And then in the examination I got one single question, and it was a very easy one. But that's not going to happen with your exam. You can expect to get a number of these questions. Okay, so control costs, what's it all about? Control costs is a process of monitoring the status of the project to update the project costs and managing changes to the cost baseline. A key benefit of this process is that the cost baseline is maintained throughout the project. Updating the budget requires knowledge of the actual costs spent to date. Any increase to the authorised budget can only be approved through the Perform Integrated Change Control process. Monitoring the expenditure of funds without regard to the value of work being accomplished for such expenditure has little value to the project other than to just track the outflow of funds. Much of the effort of cost control involves analysing the relationship between the consumption of project funds and the work being accomplished for such expenditures, and you can see that on PMBOK Guide page 257. The word work in the introduction to the lesson means the actual deliverables rather than the activities required to produce them. This means that in the control cost process, suppose we have budgeted 5,000 to have a 50-metre wall built. Suppose further that in the first 3 days we have spent $3,000. What we want to know is how much of the wall has been built, and are we getting good value for money, rather than how many hours the builders have worked. The key to effective cost control is the management of the approved cost baseline. Project cost baseline includes influence the factors that create change to the authorised cost baseline. What this really means is that you, as project manager, are trying to prevent changes being made to the cost baseline unless they are absolutely necessary. Ensuring that all change requests are acted on in a timely manner. This is important because they say time is money, but also prompt action is often required because it could be too late to deliver something. I remember when I was at school, we were taught that when a gigantic oil tanker was arriving at a port, they had to start slowing down 2 days before arriving, and a relatively small change in direction could take hours. If an obstacle were spotted ahead, even though the request to change direction could be raised quickly, the ship could not respond quickly enough to avoid it. As a project manager, you need to be more like the captain of a speedboat, which can easily avoid obstacles, rather than the captain of the oil tanker. However, even with urgent action, and this is vital, you can't cut corners. All change requests still need to go through integrated change control. Project cost control also includes managing the actual changes when and as they occur. This means managing the approved changes. Ensuring that cost expenditures do not exceed the authorised funding by period, by work breakdown structure component, by activity, and in total for the project. Monitoring cost performance to isolate and understand variances from the approved cost baseline. Variances can be up or down. You might find that you've spent much less in this period than was budgeted, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's time to celebrate, as we'll find out later. Monitoring work performance against funds expended. Like the brick wall I mentioned earlier, how much wall have we built for the money we spent, and are we getting good value for money? Preventing unapproved changes from being included in the reported cost of resource usage. Informing appropriate stakeholders of all approved changes and associated costs, and bringing expended cost overruns within acceptable limits. Now let's have a look at the inputs. Control costs, input number 1 is a project management plan, and specifically we're looking at the cost management plan. The cost management plan describes how the project costs will be managed and controlled. The cost baseline. This is compared with the actual results to help determine if a change, corrective action or preventative action is necessary. Performance measurement baseline. When using earned value analysis, the performance measurement baseline is compared to the actual results to help determine if a change, corrective action or preventative action is necessary. What is earned value analysis? It is a very important set of tools that we will cover very soon, so please be patient. Input number 2, project documents. Examples of project documents that may be considered as inputs for this process include the lessons learned register. Input number 3, project funding requirements. The project funding requirements include projected expenditures plus anticipated liabilities. Input number 4, work performance data. The work performance data contains information on project status, such as what costs have been authorised, incurred, invoiced and paid. Number 5 is the organisational process assets, which in this case are the existing formal and informal cost control related policies, procedures and guidelines, cost control tools and monitoring and reporting methods to be used. Control costs, tools and techniques. Number 1, it's expert judgment again. Examples of expert judgment during the control cost process include variance analysis, earned value analysis, forecasting and financial analysis. Tool and technique number 2, data analysis. The techniques that can be used to control costs include earned value analysis, EVA. This is a big section and it's very important that you understand it. I'm going to simplify it as much as I can, but you also need to study it in a PMBOK guide in conjunction with my explanation. As we go through this, please remember that earned value is the value of the project work we have produced, i.e. the value of the deliverables produced, both complete and incomplete. What does earned value analysis do? It compares the actual schedule and cost performance against the performance measurement baseline. You will recall that the scope baseline is a combination of the authorised scope plus the work breakdown structure baseline plus the work breakdown structure dictionary baseline. Please remember for the exam that earned value management integrates the scope baseline with the cost baseline and schedule baseline to form the performance measurement baseline. So the performance measurement baseline is the scope baseline plus the cost baseline plus the schedule baseline. Earned value management develops and monitors 3 key dimensions for each work package and control account: planned value, earned value and actual cost. Let's study these in detail. Planned value. Planned value, PV, is the authorised budget assigned to schedule work. But what does that actually mean? For an activity or work package, planning package or control account, the planned value is the amount of budget you had allocated for it back at the beginning. For example, if you had budgeted $5,000 to build a 50-metre brick wall, the planned value for the wall equals the budgeted amount equals $5,000, because a budget is the amount you plan to spend on something. Now suppose you'd expected the wall to take 5 days to build, and at the end of day 3 you had planned or budgeted to spend $3,000. Therefore, the budgeted amount at the end of day 3 was $3,000. The planned value for the entire project is called the budget at completion, the BAC, because that is the total amount you had planned or budgeted to spend at the completion of the project. The next key dimension of earned value management is earned value. Earned value, EV, is a measure of the work performed expressed in terms of the budget authorised for that work. Suppose you have budgeted $5,000 to build a 50-metre brick wall. You expect it to be completed at the end of the 5th day. So the planned value for the finished wall is $5,000. You expect to complete 10 metres of the wall per day, but at the end of day 3 you completed just 20 metres instead of 30 metres. This means your planned value for 3 days was $3,000, but your earned value for 3 days is just $2,000. It's 20 metres times $1,000 per 10 metres. Remember, both of these are in terms of the original budget. That is actually totally vital to your understanding how earned value works. It is the budget associated with the authorised work that has been completed. Progress measurement criteria should be established for each work breakdown structure component to measure work in progress. We will cover this later, but it means we need a way to measure the earned value of the work. With the brick wall it's quite easy, but many activities on a project do not have a linear relationship. For example, if the project is create new software, it is very difficult to estimate the work done. You can't base it on the number of lines of code written, because usually a large number of lines are written in the early stages, and then when you get into the closing stages you're down to very few lines being written. Now we come to the third dimension, very important, actual cost. This is a very simple one. Actual cost, AC, is the realised cost for the work performed on an activity during a specific time period. Okay, what's that in English? It means how much in terms of actual dollars have you spent to create that earned value. Let's look at our brick wall again. We budgeted $1,000 per day and expected to build 10 meters per day. So for 3 days, your planned value is $3,000 and you should have built 30 meters of wall. But if at the end of day 3, your actual cost of the 3 days is $3,000, but only 20 meters of wall have been built. So now we have planned value is $3,000, actual cost is $3,000, but earned value is just $2,000. That means for every $3 you spent, you created just $2 of value. The next data analysis technique is variance analysis. The PMBOK guide says variance analysis as used in EVM is the explanation, cause, impact and corrective actions for cost. CV equals EV over AC, SV equals EV over PV, and schedule of completion, VAC equals BAC over EAC variances. Now just in case that totally simple statement from the PMBOK guide is not completely clear, let's take it apart a little bit. Variance analysis can calculate 3 variances on a project: cost variance, schedule variance and variance at completion. Cost and schedule variances are the most frequently used. If you aren't using earned value management on your projects, you can still do some variance analysis by comparing actual project performance against the cost baseline. You would then need to investigate the cause and degree of variances and determine any corrective or preventative actions needed. But once you learn earned value management and variance analysis, I think that you'll actually want to use these, and they're very powerful tools in your project. Project cost control is not just a matter of passively measuring things. It enables corrective or preventative action to be taken once the variances exceed the percentage range of acceptable variances. Early in the project, you will still largely be in learning mode. The percentage range of acceptable variances are often quite large until the project settles down. However, much later in the project, the percentage range of acceptable variances can be reduced significantly because the project is more predictable and defined, plus of course you've already produced some of the outputs. We have arrived at a very important part of earned value management. It is important that you go for this next section a number of times until you have a good grasp of it. As a quick recap, planned value, PV, is the authorised budget assigned to the scheduled work. Earned value, EV, is a measure of the work performed expressed in terms of the budget authorised for that work. And actual cost, AC, is the realised cost incurred for the work performed on an activity during a specific time period. Budget at completion is the budget for the whole project. Examples of variance analysis include schedule variance, SV. It is the amount by which the project is ahead or behind the planned delivery date at a given point in time. It is a measure of the schedule performance on a project. Schedule variance equals earned value minus planned value, or SV equals EV minus PV. For example, You have budgeted $5,000 to build our famous brick wall. It's a 50-metre brick wall and it's scheduled to be completed in 5 days. It's now the end of day 3. Therefore, the planned value at the end of day 3 is $3,000 because you budgeted to spend $1,000 per day. But when you measure the earned value, you've built just 20 metres of wall. So your earned value is $2,000 because that's what you have completed in terms of the original budget. Schedule variance equals the earned value minus the planned value equals 2,000 minus 3,000 equals minus $1,000. A negative value means you're behind schedule. So this is a bad result. The project is behind schedule. At the end of a project, the schedule variance will always be 0. Please note that for the examination, because all of the planned value will have been spent and all of the earned value will have been earned, and so there can't be a variance. Cost variance is a measure of the cost performance of the project. It is the amount of budget deficit or surplus at a given point in time, expressed as the difference between earned value and actual cost. It is a measure of cost performance on a project. Cost variance equals earned value minus actual cost. CV equals EV minus AC. For example, you've budgeted $5,000 to build a 50-metre brick wall and it's scheduled to be completed in 5 days. It is now the end of day 3, therefore the planned value at the end of day 3 is $3,000 because you budgeted to spend $1,000 per day. You have actually completed 30 metres of wall, so the earned value will be $3,000 and the schedule variance will be 0 because earned value equals planned value. So you're right on schedule, but when you check the cost for the 3 days work, you find you've actually spent $3,200. This means your cost value equals earned value minus actual cost equals $3,000 minus $3,200 equals minus $200. A positive variance is good, but this is a negative variance. Negative variance is bad. So this is a bad result. The project is $200 over cost, although it is on schedule. It's often very difficult to recover from a negative cost variance. That comes up in the exam quite often as well. It's often very difficult to recover from a negative cost variance because it means you've been overspending on the work performed. The Schedule Performance Index, SPI, measures how efficiently the project team is accomplishing the work. It is sometimes used in conjunction with the Cost Performance Index, CPI, to forecast the final budget completion estimates. Schedule Performance Index, SPI, equals the earned value divided by the planned value. SPI equals EV over PV. A Schedule Variance Index of less than 1 means less work was accomplished than was planned. A Schedule Performance Index means more than 1 means that more work was completed than was planned. For example, if you have budgeted $5,000 to build a 50-metre brick wall and it's scheduled to be completed in 5 days, it's at the end of day 3, therefore planned value at the end of day 3 is $3,000 because you budgeted to spend $1,000 per day. But you've actually completed just 25 metres of wall, and so the earned value is $2,500. Schedule Performance Index equals earned value divided by planned value equals 2,500 divided by 3,000 equals 0.83. An index less than 1 is bad, an index greater than 1 is good, so this is a bad result. What does this result actually mean? It means that for each dollar you budgeted to spend, you completed just 83 cents of work. And please remember for the exam, the precision required for answers is 2 places of decimals. Since the Schedule Performance Index measures all project work, the performance on the critical path also needs to be analysed to determine whether the project will finish ahead or behind its planned finish date. Cost Performance Index is a measure of the cost efficiency of budgeted resources expressed as a ratio of the earned value to the actual cost. Please note that CPI is considered the most critical earned value analysis metric and measures the cost efficiency of the work completed. A CPI of less than 1 indicates a cost overrun for the work completed. Remember I said an index less than 1 is bad, an index greater than 1 is good. A CPI greater than 1 indicates a cost underrun of performance to date. Cost performance index equals earned value divided by actual cost. So CPI equals earned value divided by actual cost. For example, if you've budgeted $5,000 to build a 50-metre brick wall and it's scheduled to be completed in 5 days, it's not the end of day 3, therefore the planned value at the end of day 3 is $3,000 because you budgeted to spend $1,000 per day. You've actually completed just 25 metres of wall and so the earned value is $2,500. However, you've actually spent $2,400. Cost performance index equals earned value over actual cost equals 2,500 over 2,400 equals 1.04. As I said before, an index less than 1 is bad, but this is a good result because this index is greater than 1. What does this result actually mean? It means that for each dollar you spent, you completed $1.04 of work. So that's good. The next earned value analysis technique is trend analysis, which examines project performance over time to determine if performance is improving or deteriorating. Examples of trend analysis include charts. These enable planned value, earned value and actual value, earned value analysis variables to be easily monitored and reported for each period, typically weekly or monthly and on a cumulative basis as well. Figure 712 uses S-curves to display earned value data for a project that is performing over budget and behind schedule. Forecasting. The project team can develop an estimated completion EAC forecast. If this forecast is proven to be significantly different from the budgeted completion, then the project manager should consider using the EAC instead of the BAC. That's an important one for the exam too. If this is the case, then the other baselines may require revision as well because something is basically wrong and the baselines need to reflect reality. Forecasting the estimated completion means a project manager and project team are predicting the future based on the past in light of current project knowledge, mainly from work performance data. So you get an increase in accuracy with this. The estimated completion is usually based on the actual costs incurred for the work completed, plus an estimate to complete the remaining work. And the most important technique is a manual summing up, bottom-up summation, This bottom-up EAC method builds upon the actual costs and experience incurred for the work completed and requires a new estimate to complete the remaining project work. The equation is EAC equals AC plus bottom-up ETC. The project manager's manual estimate to completion is quickly compared with a range of calculated EACs representing various risk scenarios. When calculating EAC values, the cumulative CPI and SPI values are typically used. The three most common methods are as follows, and this is from the PMBOK Guide, page 365. EAC forecast for ETC work performed at the budgeted rate. This EAC method uses the actual budget performance to date as represented by the actual costs and predicts that all future ETC work will be accomplished at the budgeted rate. When actual performance is unfavourable, the assumption that future performance will improve should be accepted only when supported by project risk analysis. Equation EAC equals AC plus BAC over EV. EAC forecast for ETC work performed at the present CPI. This EAC method assumes that what the project has experienced to date can be expected to continue in the future. The ETC work, the estimate to complete work, is assumed to be performed at the same cumulative cost performance index, CPI, as that incurred by the project to date. The equation is EAC equals BAC over CPI. And just in case you're getting a bit cross-eyed reading all these acronyms, you'll find in the examination when it gives one of these acronyms, it will actually spell it out. So it'll say something like EAC, brackets, estimate at completion. Estimate at completion forecast for ETC work, considering both SPI and CPI factors. In this EAC forecast, the ETC work will be performed at an efficiency rate that considers both the cost and schedule performed indices. This method is most useful when the project schedule is a factor impacting the ETC effort. Variations of this method weight the CPI and SPI at different values, e.g. 80-20, 50-50 or some other ratio, according to the project manager's judgment. The equation EAC equals AC plus BAC over EV divided by CPI over SPI. Reserve analysis. At the start of the project, management reserves were set aside to cover the risk of responses or other contingencies. These reserves are under management control and not available to the project manager. The reserves won't show in the cost baseline unless they're actually spent. Risks may be negative, i.e. threats, which require reserves to be spent, but they can also be positive, i.e. opportunities, and they can give rise to cost savings which are added to the reserves. If an identified negative risk doesn't occur, the unused contingency reserve attributed to it may be removed from the project budget to free up resources for other projects or operations. So it's not going to be released for this project unless it's actually required for mitigation. Conversely, newly discovered risks may need to request additional reserves be added to the project budget. Tools and technique number 3, To-Complete Performance Index. The To-Complete Performance Index, TCPI, is a measure of the cost performance that is required to be achieved with the remaining resources in order to meet a specified management goal. It is expressed as a ratio of the cost to finish the outstanding work to the remaining budget. As the project has progressed, we have routinely measured the Cost Performance Index, the CPI, and as I mentioned before, a negative CPI is a difficult one to recover from. And if the budget at completion, the BAC, is no longer viable, the project manager should consider using the forecasted estimate at completion. But at any point in the project, the To-Complete Performance Index, TCPI, tells us from this day onwards what cost performance index do we have to maintain to reach our goal. Think of it like driving a car. You have to drive 2,000 kilometers in 2 days at 10 hours per day. At the end of day 1, you've covered just 850 kilometers, so your average speed was 85 kilometers per hour. This means that your average speed on day 2 must be at least 115 kilometers per hour to reach your original destination on time. Your day 1 speed is like your cost performance index, and your required average speed on day 2 is like your To-Complete Performance Index. The equation for TCPI based on budget at completion is budget at completion over EV divided by budget at completion over AC. What does this actually mean? Budget at completion is the original project budget. EV is what has already been used from the budget to create the work. So BAC minus EV equals how much work is left to be done. BAC minus AC, how many actual dollars do we have left to do this with? And if the AC is greater than EV, we will need to start producing more than planned from now on to the end of the project, but spending less than planned, which means we have to be more efficient. And the TCPI tells us how much more efficient we have to be. In our car example, we had to increase our efficiency from 85 kilometers per hour to 115 kilometers per hour. But this new efficiency may not be achievable because maintaining an average speed of 115 kilometers per hour is, well, in Australia that would be illegal. We've got a maximum of 110, and even if it isn't illegal, an average speed of 115 means at times you'd have to travel at much higher speeds, which would definitely be illegal. Additionally, higher speed means higher risk because A problem could happen with the engine, tire could blow out, you could have an accident, all sorts of things can happen. Likewise, if your CPI is low, your TCPI will not be physically achievable and you will increase risk. The To Complete Performance Index, TCPI, is conceptually displayed in figure 7.13. The equation for the TCPI inside the box is the one we've already looked at, but now there are two other variations. The first is calculated using the budget at completion, i.e. the original project budget. The second uses the estimated completion, i.e. the new forecast budget. Which one to use will be the project manager's call, and in the exam you can expect hints that the EAC is more reliable than the BAC. If your cumulative CPI falls below the baseline as shown in figure 7.13, all future work of the project will need to be performed immediately in the range of a TCPI, BAC as reflected by the top of the line in figure 7.13 to stay within the authorised budgeted completion. The level of performance is displayed as the TCPI EAC line. The equation for the TCPI is based on the EAC, which is BAC over EV divided by EAC over AC. All the earned value management formula are provided in table 7.1 on page 267 of the PMBOK guide. I know it's a large table, but it is really important that you understand and remember these details for the exam. Tools and technique number 4, project management information systems. Project management information systems are often used to monitor the three EVM dimensions, PV, EV and AC, to display graphical trends and to forecast a range of possible final project results. These can be particularly valuable because you can try what-if scenarios and see the result in real time. Control cost outputs. Number 1 is work performance information. Work performance information includes details of how the project work is performing at the work package level and control account level compared with the cost baseline. Output number 2, cost forecasts. Either a calculated EAC value or a bottom-up EAC value is documented and communicated to stakeholders. Output number 3, change requests. Analysis of project performance may result in a change request to the cost and schedule baselines or other components of the project management plan. Change requests are processed for review and action through the Perform Integrated Change Control process. Output number 4, project management plan updates. Any change to the project management plan goes to the organization's change control process via a change request. Components that may require change requests for the project management plan include the cost management plan, the cost baseline, the performance measurement baseline, and that brings us to the project documents updates, which is output number 5. Project documents that can be updated as a result of carrying out the process include the assumption log, the basis of estimates, the cost estimates, the lessons learned register and the risk register. And that brings us to the end of control costs, and it's also the end of this module, project cost management.